Hi, Branson. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, sir. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Where are you originally from, sir?
I was born up on Lake Ontario, north of Syracuse, New York, about 30 miles northeast of Syracuse,
Okay.
a place called Fulton, New York. It was also it's sometimes called Oswego, New York. They're right next to each other. Oswego is on Lake Ontario, so we're about 7 or 8 miles from Lake Ontario.
how far are you from the Catskills?
Pretty far. Catskills are just in the ballpark of an hour and a half north of New York City. And we're something like, I'm guessing six, 5.5.
Okay.
If you look at a map of New York, you'll see Lake Ontario, and to the right is the Adirondack Mountains. And that's kind of close to where I grew up. And the Catskills are pretty low, quite a bit south. And actually, I consider the Catskills hills, not mountains at all. They're really old mountains, and basically they look like hills to me compared to the Adirondacks, or even compared to the Blue Ridge, or most mountains.
And do you know any Renwick?
One more time.
Do you know any Renwick people?
That sounds like a typical Dutch name, which is really common up there. I can't say that I know that particular name, but there's that type of name is very, very common, particularly in the Catskills and in what's called the Hudson Valley, which is an area south of Albany that kind of connects to White Plains, New York, I guess. There's kind of a valley there, and much of that was settled by the Dutch. So you'll see a lot of those kind of surnames in that area. My area where I grew up was mostly Italian immigrants, Irish. A little bit later, there were a lot of Polish um, immigrants. There weren't a lot of Dutch that I grew up with anyway.
Mm.
You get a lot of names like, Van so-and-so, Van Stuyvesant, or Van weird consonants and stuff. That's usually has its origins in Dutch. And, much of, New York City was really settled by people from Holland and the Netherlands and so forth. Rensselaer is another real common name you probably heard of. There's actually a
Mhm.
Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which is in Albany or outside of Albany. So yeah, didn't know a lot of folks with those kind of surnames where I grew up.
Yeah, I just found out I'm related to the famous James Renwick,
What is he famous for?
building St. Patrick's Cathedral, the
Wow.
Smithsonian.
Huh. Very cool. I must admit, I've never heard of the name, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm not really up on that. There's so many, so many little things like that, like, St. Patrick's Cathedral, certainly everyone has heard of, but it's probably not something I've given a lot of thought to as to who built it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but it is interesting, I think really, if you really go back far enough, everyone is basically related to everyone else. At least that's how it seems to me.
Ed Roach.
Hello. Hey, John, how are you today?
Doing great, Dennis. How about you?
I'm all right.
Good weekend?
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I had to do a lot of grass cutting, but I kind of like doing that. Doesn't bother me too much. How about you? Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, real good, real good.
Good.
Thank you for that information you sent on the Facebook page about that mix company. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes useful to see what others in a similar space are doing.
Exactly.
One of the things I really look for and spend a lot of time on is packaging, graphics, how their brand is kind of positioned. I'm not, you could gain 500 pounds testing all the different products, in the various categories. I tend
That's
to
true.
just kind of look for things like how are they branded, who does it look like they're targeting, that sort of thing is kind of what I do. more than
Exactly.
anything else. Hey Ruth, how are you today? All right. Okay. Well, I think I'll kind of get started. Grant, if you keep your eyes peeled, as more folks might show up. Hey Ruth, how are you today?
Hey, doing well, thanks. Got you on mute while I'm working today.
I understand. No problem. I'm just saying hello.
And
All
thanks
right.
for that link you sent me on the jams thing. They're really worth looking into. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, she started in Charlotte, believe it or not.
Interesting.
And then she moved to Brooklyn. So I don't
Huh.
know what if she had to move for some other reason or I don't know, but um, just I thought it was interesting branding. It looked like they spent a lot of money on design, package design and branding and so forth.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much. I'm going to look into that more. I
No problem.
appreciate it.
Happy to help. All right, let's see if we can share my screen here a little bit. So it probably looks pretty crazy up there to everybody. Let me try to clean up a little bit here. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my slide about do you need an e-commerce website? Is that showing up okay? Somebody tell me that. I'll like to know.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so today it's going to be kind of a whirlwind, but this is kind of setting up a tone of really what I call omni-channel marketing or omni-channel business, where you look at a lot of different ways to reach the market, not just your website or just one single point, but multiple points. And I'm going to show you some things that some folks in our classes previously are doing or have done, and give you a little bit of a sense of of what's going on. So looks like some folks are still joining us here. So hopefully everyone can see this okay. And let's see, how do I do this? Okay. All right, well, let me try it this way. Okay. Okay, do you need an e-commerce site? And my question really is really kind of twofold in the sense of, yes, you would argue that you need an e-commerce site to sell your products online. And conventional wisdom is yes. We talk about Shopify, there's Wix, Miva, many, many more software solutions, I guess the best way to talk about it, different ways that you can get your products and services online and be able to transact business using a website. Today, we're going to talk about omni-channel, or at least start on that subject. And we're going to talk about not only other online avenues, but also physical and what I'll call partner sites. And stop me if anybody has any questions along the way. So when I got involved with e-commerce, I'm going to date myself, but it was about 1995, 1996 that I first got involved. And it's a long, involved story, and I won't get into all the details, but I was asked to help a group of friends that had a company that basically sold computer products to government agencies, and they wanted to try to figure out a way to sell to regular consumers beyond just their contracts that they had with various federal government agencies. So that led me on a process of setting up an e-commerce website. And at that time, the reality of it was the most difficult and most expensive thing that you could do was to actually build an e-commerce site. And you know, in our case, we spent $1 million building an e-commerce site, and frankly, it never worked right. It was always a problem for a bunch of different reasons. So the big barrier to entry for anyone other than a really big brand was the cost. I mean, the cost of building an e-commerce site was significant, and oftentimes in those days, people would try to raise money from investors, and the primary purpose was to actually build the website. But now that's kind of changed. I would argue that e-commerce functionality or e-commerce websites are not necessarily an incredible amount of money. Yes, they do cost money, and to get it really good still costs some money, but relatively speaking, it's very affordable for a wide range of folks like yourselves and others to actually be able to set up a site. You know, you look at somebody like, I don't know, like maybe a college student who wants to sell something that they make by hand, let's say, or some sort of idea that they have. You know, it's not that hard to set up a Shopify site or Wix or one of the other sites and get up and running so that you can do that. I would argue that that's a relatively small amount of money, certainly less than $50 a month, maybe even less than that, maybe free in some cases. So really my position at this point, and I'm open to argument, really is the cost of getting customers to your site is really the primary cost now. And we've talked about SEO. We're going to learn more about Google tools as time goes on, including SEO, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, other ads I'm sure that you all have used or tried, other ideas and methods that maybe some of you can share that I'm not even aware of, and even more. But in general, all of these things cost money. And one of the things that I want to just point out is the speed of change. And it's really true in digital business because the relative cost to change what you're doing technology-wise is relatively low compared to a store in a mall or a store on a downtown street or whatever. So to actually change what you're doing altogether is really not as hard as it used to be. And one example I'll give you is SEO. And some of you know all about it. Some of you may not, and I can explain it, but it's search engine optimization. The idea that you want your website to do all the things necessary to attract primarily Google to find your website so that when somebody goes to Google and asks for, you know, products near them, that your site will be responsive to those requests. And SEO is really a function of what's called really point and click commerce. And what that is you basically you go through a catalog on a website, you point at something, and then you click on something to either buy it or hear a product description or see a product description. That point and click model has really been going strong now, probably for 20 years or so. And I think things are changing in that arena as well, as we'll see here in a minute. Google tools, things like Google Find My Business or My Business, they have a number of tools that are actually free. And we're going to have a guest speaker on that coming up in a couple of weeks who you guys will just love. Most of his stuff is actually free, and he is just really wonderful, the stuff that he points out. I think some of you have taken him up on some of this and have really benefited. Facebook ads, Instagram ads, there's a lot of controversy now about Facebook ads because Apple has changed the settings on iPhones so that Facebook ads aren't nearly as good as they were before this change. So there's some stuff going on in that space in terms of how well that works. And I haven't really kept up with that, but I know that's an issue. The other thing is time is money. Whether you're self-funded or you're outside funded with venture capital or however you're funded, it's really important to figure out how long is it going to take me and how much money is it going to
That
take to reach critical mass. Please mute whoever's on there. Please mute your screen. But anyway, the idea that it's going to take some period of time until you can reach critical mass, whether that's visitors to your site, buyers to your site, however you measure that, the time that takes is really an important metric. The other thing that I found with this class, not necessarily you in particular, but this program, since we started last September, is that the cost of technical help and maintenance can be significant. And in many cases, people who have taken our class actually don't have any technical help at all. They do everything themselves. So that can be a real issue, keeping up with technical things with your website or requirements by outside folks that you need to do. If you don't have access to technical help or can't afford technical help, that's another weight that holds you down on your effort to reach critical mass. And then other things like integrating with different payment platforms. Many of you may have a particular payment platform, might be PayPal, could be Stripe, etc. But those integrations can be complicated. And you might also have complications integrating with CMSs or content management systems. If you're trying to manage the content of your website, sometimes the tools necessary to do that require technical expertise or some kind of assistance and can slow you down also. Are there any other things on this that I might be missing that anybody wants to point out or bring up there, or that you've dealt with in your business? Okay. So one of the things that you'll hear a lot about, you hear a lot of buzzwords, and one of the words you hear as a buzz is the word platform. Platform thinking is really big in the world of e-commerce these days. So you'll often hear of people, Amazon is a platform, eBay is a platform, and et cetera, et cetera. Etsy is a platform. And all of these places are trying to be a place where they will handle everything that you need to do your business, at least with them. And so platform thinking, I like it in a lot of ways. And I don't know if you think of your business as a platform, but it really is, or it really can be, particularly if you start to use these various channels, these various platforms to grow your business. Do you view your business as just a series of locations? It might be physical stores located somewhere. It might be farmers markets or some other market that you use or you consider a location. It could be partner websites where you have your information. For example, a farmers market website might have a product listing for your product and people can find you there. Partnering with high traffic sites, like, for example, partnering with a farmer's market or some other site that you're familiar with that gets a lot of traffic. It could be a grocery store or some other business that generates a lot of traffic and is willing to let you put some kind of connection on their platform to reach your site. And then there's also the ability to take your platform and extend it to other countries, exporting to China, the European Union, Canada, and Mexico, maybe a little closer to home. This is all very possible and not nearly as difficult as you might think. Okay, so this is where it's going to get a little tricky. Hopefully I'll be able to share my screen correctly. So I'm going to just make one little change here real quick. Excuse me for just a moment. Okay. Okay, so I would argue that as you build volume on your website, you might consider other steps along the way to grow your business. And I'm going to share with you some examples that others in our class have done and some of the places that they have tried to do this. Social media is really an obvious one, and many of you do use Facebook and Instagram and so forth. Perhaps TikTok, perhaps Snapchat and others. But I'm going to go through some specific ones here. So first one I'm going to go through is one called Doorstep Market. And I'm just familiar with them. I've worked with them quite a bit. And here's one of our companies from a previous class, Booze Dogs, who you might be familiar with. Booze Dogs is on Doorstep Market as a way to reach people that perhaps they weren't reaching with their website or their other efforts. One of the things of this particular site and others like it is there is no cost to list your product on this site. So, and they also give you the ability to control all of the content on the site. So all of these things you see, these pictures, this pricing, everything you see here is actually controlled by Booze Dogs and not by Doorstep Market. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. When somebody buys something on Doorstep Market, and say we pick something here, see if this works with any luck. This actual transaction is taking place on Doorstep Market, but it's using your credit card processing. So you don't have to wait for money from the marketplace when you make a sale. Now, they charge a 15% commission when stuff is sold. But the idea here is you get your product, the customer gets their product, you get the money, and you also get the customer's email address, which is not true of a lot of marketplaces, as some of you well know. So I wanted to show you that, and I can connect you to these folks if it's something you want to look into. It's kind of a no-brainer. They have around 1 million people that go to this site. It's all around the country, and it's a relatively high-end consumer. And if you go to doorstep.market, you can see kind of how it works, and I'll be providing all these links afterwards as well. Okay, so let's take a look at Etsy next. And some of you may be familiar with Etsy. So Simple and Sentimental was in our very first class, and they really do a lot of business on Etsy as it happens. So they've got over 11,000 transactions on Etsy, and I would bet the majority of their sales are in fact on Etsy. Now Etsy is charges also. Sometimes they don't charge up front. And so a lot of different depending on the deal that you make with them, but they control the platform. So you don't get the email address. They do everything they can to prevent people from finding your website and going off platform. So that's one thing to keep in mind. They do have over 4 million people registered to buy. So it's a lot of people here. And you can make money while you're building your own business, which is what Simple and Sentimental is doing. They are building their website and other channels at the same time. They're using Etsy because that's been kind of their bread and butter. So they're still doing that. Okay, here's one you're probably not familiar with. It's fairly new. It's called Pantastic. Pantastic.com. They have a number of products here. They're another marketplace. I think the easiest way to compare them is kind of like Etsy in the sense that they have all different makers. You can see here, they have a lot of different categories, and each product is sold by somebody different. They have a whole bunch of different brands that do business on here. Again, no cost to be listed. But you do pay a fee when something sells. I think it's 15%. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it is a percentage. And I don't believe you get the email address with that either. The other thing is a little bit different here. Like Etsy and unlike Doorstep, they are doing the credit card processing. So it's their credit card processing, which is how they keep the data away from you, the customer data. They don't want you leaving their website either. So it may result in revenue, but it doesn't necessarily result in you building your customer list, which is true of a lot of these, if you really think about it. Next one here is Amazon. Some of you are on Amazon. I wasn't able to find anybody. I looked a little bit, but I have worked with these guys, Fat Toad Farm, which is a farm up in Vermont. So they are, of all of these kinds of companies, they are on everything you can think of. They're on Etsy, they're on eBay, they're on Amazon, they're on their own website. They're just everywhere. So they really believe in this omni-channel strategy, and they do pretty well. I never really have learned how much they do in each channel, but I know it's significant. They've been in business, I believe, since 2007. So they've done a lot of business. This is a farm in Vermont, husband and wife. They raise goats and they sell goat-related caramel products, cheeses, things like that. But they're a big proponent of this multi-channel. So, for example, here they are on eBay as well. So they're selling on eBay, they're selling on Amazon. They're literally everywhere that they can possibly be, and I think it's interesting. Another big market is Walmart.com, and I don't know if you realize this, and maybe you do, but like Amazon, Walmart.com, the majority of the sales that are made on Walmart.com are not made by Walmart. They're made by small merchants who are in the marketplace. So it works very similar to Amazon, depending on if you want them to ship your product, et cetera, et cetera. But you're listing your product on Amazon, or in this case on Walmart, and you're making sales, and they control the customer info also. So that's another consideration. But it's very interesting. Before the pandemic, Walmart carried about 500,000 SKUs of product. Since the pandemic, they're now up to 75 million SKUs on the marketplace. So it's a much busier place. There's a lot going on there. And the reason I picked out Smucker's here is a major global brand with the ability to get on shelves and everywhere you can think of, yet they still see the benefit of putting their product on a marketplace like Walmart. And I think that's pretty interesting and worth noting that even the big guys are using this omni-channel strategy. I wanted to show this also because this I thought was a pretty good example. And this is still, or it's back to Amazon, if you will. But we started off this presentation talking about, do you need a website, an e-commerce website? So in this case, in Amazon's case, this is essentially your website, only it's on Amazon. So this is not your individual e-commerce website. It's a site hosted by Amazon, but it has many of the attributes of your own website. And I just wanted to point that out as something that is available on most of these marketplaces, be it Walmart, Amazon, you do Doorstep, certainly. You have the ability to do branding and tell your brand story, even though it's not your own website. And I would argue that because most of these are free or close to it as far as listing your products, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't do this while you continue to work on your website and your other efforts. This is kind of it's really a smart way to get the word out. It doesn't mean that you will stay on it forever or that you even like the economics of the deal. That's a separate issue. but the ability to highlight your brand, to leverage the traffic that these big sites get, I think is something to keep in mind. Okay. So the next category is something I've alluded to a little bit. We're going to go a little more depth into this as we go on. And we're very fortunate to have John Arnold in our class, who I would argue is a pioneer in social commerce. But I'm gonna show you some of the things going on here. So this is a site called Pop Shop Live. And John, feel free to break in anytime with your comments. Pop Shop Live is primarily an app that runs on your phone. It's oriented toward, I would argue, a younger demographic than some of these other sites. It's kind of a combination of social media. I would argue there's an entertainment value. I think John's son, Craig, is very entertaining. He's a very good host. This is John's son here. Let me see if I can make the audio.
Product. Join us. We're having a blast. See you later.
This will repeat over and over. This is not live at this moment. But notice that he's going to show up here again.
Join us for our next show, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday. Tuesday, 7 p.m. We're going to have all of our items, all the things, all the stuff. We're swimming in product. Join us. We're having a blast. See you there.
So the point here is this is a different model, if you will. Now, in John's case, his business, not only are they a manufacturer, but they're also a wholesaler of multiple products. So in their show, which is a regularly scheduled show on Pop Shop Live, they're selling a variety of different products, some of which are not theirs, some of it may be some of your products. You may be on here for all I know. But I think that the couple things to note here, the first thing to note is this is intended to be on a mobile device. And you'll find that some of you may find an increasing percentage of your traffic is coming from mobile devices. So this is answering that trend. The other thing that's really interesting is from this concept is when you buy a product, you actually stay on the app. You don't leave the app to make the transaction. The transaction takes place on the app, and there's an integration that goes through. In the case of Shopify, it will go through to your Shopify backend and post the inventory and post the sale and all that. The other thing that this company does, and there's one other one similar I'm going to show you in a second, they actually provide for shipping the product as well. They provide a prepaid shipping label that you print out and you use to ship the product to the buyer from your site. Now, the customer pays, I believe it's $5.99 for flat shipping in the US, and all other purchases during that event, I believe, are free. And John, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But the rest of the items are free, and they will give you a label to print out and put on the package to send to the customer. And the amazing thing is when the post office scans that label, that's when you get paid for selling the product. They require the use of that label to prove that you delivered it to the customer and to release the funds that will be paid to you for making the sale. So John, do you want to step in here if you're here and comment on any aspect of this?
Sorry for the delay, Dennis. I was trying to type that in.
No problem.
Yeah, everything you said is 100% correct. It's a base $5.99 shipping charge. Everything they buy after that is free, so it makes it very attractive. A lot of probably our average sale has been running in the neighborhood. And you got to remember, our products are like $3, $4, $5 items, so they're relatively inexpensive. But our average sale on Pop Shop Live usually runs probably $30 to $40, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Wow.
So to be able to get $5.99 shipping on that is attractive to the customer. And what we've been really working on is partnering with other companies, especially local companies. As you can see in the video there, we are hooked up with Carolina Coffee out of Wilmington. 1 in 6 Snacks out of Raleigh that has Carolina kettle chips. Just different companies we're kind of networking with, moving their products. And we're working on several other companies right now, which I won't mention any names until we firm those up. The farmers market that Craig does is the second and fourth Friday of every month. And that's a 2-hour section of time. And it's basically just devoted to food products. So it's something that some of your other food students might want to take a look at.
Yeah, John, do you, would you characterize the customers that you get from this as different than your other channels?
Yeah, I would say so. Probably a little younger demographics. They definitely are looking for entertainment. We get a lot of comments about how much they just really thoroughly enjoy listening to Craig and watching Craig. So that's kind of a plus in addition to buying our products. Although we've got, I don't know, probably in the 30 to 40-year-old range.
Okay.
I'd say is the average.
Okay. Well, one thing that Craig does at the beginning of every show that I think is really fun, you can kind of see over his shoulder there, it looks like a wheel. He spins that wheel and that determines the discount you'll get on various categories during the show. So he starts off the show by spinning that, and there's all kinds of back and forth going on. Stop on 50%, stop on 40%. And then if it stops on something like 10% or something, everyone goes, oh, but it's really lively. It's really fun. Craig is really good. He connects with a lot of individuals. I think there's a lot of repeat people because he seems to know them, or he's just the kind of guy who makes you feel like he knows them. But I think the other thing that's also true is there's nothing phony here. There's nothing made up. It's very real. You can see it's not a big fancy set. It doesn't have high production value like in a studio or anything like that. So it's kind of down home. It's kind of real. And I've actually been working with the Pop Shop Live management team to get us some kind of deal that we can use. And they've shared a lot of their insights that they've gotten over time. And they believe that authenticity is really critical to the audience that they feel that they attract, and not high production values, not glitzy graphics and all that kind of stuff. So this is really done with an iPhone and maybe one of those lights, maybe there's a microphone, I'm not sure, but it's not a high dollar setup. And they've been doing it for some time. So it's really cool, John. And I appreciate your telling us some of those things.
Absolutely, Dennis. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So here's another one I'm going to show you. And this is called Talk Shop Live. I'm going to play this video a little bit because it is a little bit different than Pop Shop. This is Trisha Yearwood on here.
Are we here? Are we at Talk Shop Live? I don't know why we're doing this. We're doing this whole magically at Talk Shop Live. Okay, this is exciting because.
Okay, I'm going to stop there, but basically Talk Shop Live is a little bit different than Pop Shop in the sense that they have spent a lot of time cultivating celebrities. So Oprah's on here, Matt McConaughey, the list goes on and on and on. Many, many famous people, Garth Brooks, they all have shows on here. And you look at this screen here, I think you can see a couple things I'll just point out. On the screen is you see a button where you can follow, which is also on Pop Shop Live. And the follow basically lets you know when this host is going live. And then you can share that link to your network, to other people, email, social media, and so forth. And then here is a buy button that very prominent, where you can buy whatever is being talked about at that particular time. So in this case, it's a cookbook, sells for $25.99. Sometimes on here, you'll see another box come up and it will be to donate to a charity. It might be a charity that the celebrity is posting or so forth, but it's actually available to all of us, as you don't have to be a celebrity to do this. This, like Pop Shop Live, is also free, but you do pay a commission. I forgot to mention that about Pop Shop Live. Pop Shop Live, let's just say it's roughly 9% commission, 10% in that range. These guys are similar. Upon the actual sale being made, they'll deduct 10% from your payment. The rest they'll send to you. To my knowledge, there's no other fees involved with it. But the thing about Talk Shop Live is a little bit different, is it's a wider range of potential buyers. You can tell by the celebrities, they range from baby boomers down to Generation Z. So it's a little bit of a wider range than Pop Shop Live, at least what I've seen. And like in this particular case, there's 50,000 people with Trisha Yearwood Live in this particular example here. So it's a pretty high volume site. There's a lot of people here. I don't have a relationship with them yet. I'm working on that to see how they could possibly help us as a class gain access. But it is another alternative. It is very similar in the sense that you generally host a regularly scheduled show. You list your products. You can put in lots of products. You can have bundles, quite a bit of capability there. And it likewise integrates with Shopify and maybe some other platforms as well, which make it a little less work. I would argue the biggest benefit of having an e-commerce website is really more about administration and back end than it is the front end. Because if you do business with all of these different channels, it's really great to have all that in one place, like your Shopify administrative headings. It really makes a big difference when you're trying to keep track of all the stuff. Okay. This is going to be a little bit different. Okay. And this is from a company called, and you're going to love this name, Bambuser, B-A-M-B-U-S-E-R. And Bambuser is very different than everything that we've looked at so far. Bambuser is really a technology company, not their own brand. So they're not trying to build up the Bambuser brand per se. It's more about their clients. So I'm just going to run this video just for a second to give you an idea. This is a particular retailer, I believe in the Netherlands, that I want you to just get a sense of how they use this tool. Okay, apologize that I tried to get it to go in English and it wouldn't go, but essentially this is a pretty polished video, obviously professionally created. I don't know what the hell they're talking about, but they're selling clothes, and on the screen on the left, you see these little icons, these little windows. Those are actually your catalog of products that you go to. So if you click on that, that product will show up on the right, and you can pick your size and you can add it to your cart and you can buy it. So this is pretty slick, pretty sophisticated. It tends to be more brand specific as opposed to market specific. Saks Fifth Avenue uses it, Clinique uses it, a whole bunch of major brands use this. But you also can put multiple products on here. There's no real limit. You just have to kind of figure out how you're going to deliver products from a bunch of different merchants, just a little bit more complicated. These guys do not charge a percentage. They charge a monthly fee for the technology. And it starts, I believe, at about $199 a month and goes up from there depending on how often you want to do it, what you want to do, and so forth. But it lends itself more to kind of a higher dollar branded experience. It is, the other thing that's really cool is when this show is over, people can still buy from the video recording. And about 60% of the sales on this platform actually take place after the live event is over. So that is a really, really cool thing that you can do with them. Okay. Any questions at this point? Thoughts? Anybody want to say anything? Okay. Okay. The next one is called Comments Sold. And one of their senior guys is going to be our guest speaker on Thursday. So you'll be able to talk to them quite a bit. But this is kind of an interesting model. And I know that John used Comments Sold, or maybe still does, in addition to Pop Shop Live. But Comments Sold is a little bit of a different animal. Comments Sold is really intended to be used on Facebook or Instagram or other social media. It isn't really intended to be its own location like Pop Shop Live or your brand's location. Although I think you may be able to embed it on your website. I'm not 100% sure. But this is something that they primarily do on Facebook Live. And just to point out a couple of things about this that I find really fascinating. So first of all, this particular group, Sexy Modest Boutique, just to show you here, see if I can find it. So Sexy Modest Boutique is a small business located in rural northern Utah in a town of about 30,000 people. They have 158,000 followers to their boutique on Facebook. Pretty significant. I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe that they do mid six figures every month in sales from their live events. So and it may be that it works really well in certain niches. I know the women's clothing boutique type places is kind of their strength. But the problem with Comments Sold is you have to figure out how to drive traffic to it because they themselves don't necessarily have the ability to drive a lot of traffic. Unlike Pop Shop Live and Talk Shop Live, which actually do specialize in getting people to your recording or to your video, these guys don't do that. You got to do that on your own. So some people find that to be kind of a hassle. Sometimes you might find, say you partner with a charity or something, you might get a lot of natural business from your efforts in marketing, co-marketing with a charity and so forth. The other thing that's really interesting about the way these guys work is they will build you an app that goes on the App Store or the Google Play Store in addition to this Facebook Live. So what that means is you can build up your clientele on Facebook, but you can then move them to your app. You can have incentives for them to go to your app from Facebook, could be a discount. But once they're on your app, you're no longer beholden to an external party for your customers. They will be on your app, they're yours. And because much of this actually takes place on mobile, an app makes a lot of sense. And they include that in their program. And the guest speaker will cover this on Thursday. But it's a pretty effective in some cases. It works pretty well. And a lot of people know how to use it. They have, like, for example, let's say we look up let's see, Millie's. This is a quilt shop in far northern Minnesota that's run by three grandmothers. They have 10,000 followers or 13,000 followers. They go live all the time, multiple times a day, multiple times a week. Here you see that they're having a sale only on their app and only on their website, not on Facebook. To give you an idea of how they build the traffic to their site. I looked at them the other day and they had their grandkids doing a show and they were selling books aimed at teenagers, just for example. So it's pretty interesting platform that has a lot of potential, I think, for some of us. Okay, this one here is Booze Dogs. Again, we showed Booze Dogs on Doorstep here. And here they are on Comments Sold. And I believe they're soon going to go live with John on Pop Shop. So this idea of pursuing multiple strategies, multiple channels to market, Booze Dog is actually doing that. And he's hired a couple of influencers to cook his products live. And that's been going pretty well. I just want to show you one other one before we leave this subject. This is a company called Pink Coconut Boutique. This boutique is in a small town in rural Mississippi. And notice they have 1.6 million followers on this little boutique. And I understand their sales are more than $1 million a month on their live platform. Olive Branch, Mississippi. It's not even a college town. And so it's a pretty interesting story. And their customers are from all over the world. Okay, now we're going to get into a little bit about exporting. So this is Tmall. Tmall is a site in China that's designed for really foreign brands like US companies. Let's see if I can get this to be English. Well, kind of, sort of. But here you basically take your website and it's translated into Chinese. It's also in English. And if you look through here, you may be familiar with some of these brands. Here's Volkswagen, Crocs, Scout is a well-known brand, North Face, so forth. They have quite a few well-known US brands that participate here. This can be a pretty big deal, and you can sell almost anything on here. It's kind of an interesting model, if you will. Just to give you an idea of cost to post your website here, depending on the category that you do, they charge a commission of 5%, sometimes 2%, and then an annual fee between $5,000 and $10,000, depending on which category you're in. To give you an idea about the Chinese marketplace, Tmall does hundreds of billions in business each year. They have just many more buyers than anywhere else in the world. So that's just something to keep in mind. 100 million visitors to their platform every day. It's just crazy numbers. 70,000 storefronts. I can't even read that number. It's so big. Sales volume, gross merchandise volume. And Tmall, there's a couple of different ones. Tmall and Tmall Global. Tmall requires that you have some kind of operation in China, a warehouse, distribution, something. Tmall Global is designed for e-commerce websites. You do not have to have a site in China of any kind. So that's just something to be aware of. So let's see here. I think that's about it for right now. I'll stop the share. Okay, so throw a lot at you. I'll post this so that you can have access to the links if you're interested. I'd love to hear if anybody has any thoughts or reactions based on what you heard today. What do you think, Jennifer Hyde? Okay, let's see. How about you, Elena?
Well, I believe that, yes, you're right about it's very necessary to have a good website and at the same time have very clear in your mind what are the platforms that goes also according to your product so that you can actually then work towards those platforms. So I believe that this is great that you're sharing this with us because then that give us an idea of some other platforms other than Amazon and Etsy that are the ones that you hear all the time. That may be a possibility for those that doesn't have a website to direct their product to other places. Now about exporting, I did that already. I have exported my jewelry to Costa Rica. And I think that that's, I guess, something that you will cover is depending on the laws in each country and the taxes and all of that, how the product is gonna come to the hands of the buyer, you know, how much it's gonna cost depending on all of those factors, you know, transportation and taxes and customs.
Yeah, we will go over that in depth. Just so you know, and y'all can kind of file this away. There is about $48,000 available to each one of you from the North Carolina Economic Development Partnership to assist in getting ready to do exporting. And that's a federal program. We had a guest speaker last time. They're going to be back, but and I can give you the links to that information. You can apply for that. It's $24,000 now and $24,000 after September 1st. And that includes, the either Chinese language or other language website. They help with everything you need, just like Elena just talked about, customs, shipping, taxes, the whole 9 yards. Their goal is to help you export with a minimum of impact on your business. And they have an entire project team devoted just to this. So I'm going to encourage everybody to look into that when they can. Yes, go ahead.
What is the name that you said that it is?
It's called the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. And I will provide that link to everybody. They are a private-public partnership that does all the international marketing for the state of North Carolina. Their job is to get North Carolina companies to export. And last year, because of the pandemic, they fell short in their goal by more than $6 billion. So they are highly motivated to change that. And they told me they had about $48,000 available in 2 tranches. And I believe it's money from the coronavirus, whatever all that stuff is. I can't keep it straight, but I'll connect you to them. They actually have a full-time person that we've been assigned that will work with you. And there are other resources also that can help you figure that out. Anyone else? Any comments or thoughts? Yeah, I think in some cases, in some categories, you may end up doing more business in some of these countries than even in the United States. I know that sounds crazy, but it actually is theoretically possible, based on what I'm hearing. Okay. Ruth, anything from you? You want to comment? I know she's working, so she may be putting out fires. How about you, Branson?
I use Etsy and I've been using basically tagging my products that I do to my Facebook from Etsy and from Shopify. And I'm about to start getting into live streaming to sell products since a lot of my stuff is digital music and things like that. So we're going to be trying to use that to also, like Mr. Arnold, share other local products along with my stuff. So
Great. That's fantastic. Quandell, what do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I enjoyed. Once again, I'm sort of stuck though. I'm back actually returning to our last meeting where we were discussing branding and attempting to bring more clarity to my statements and I have my notes here. Yeah, and just pulling that brand identity map and just tying up some loose ends. I feel like I have some gaps in explaining what it is that we represent and being our brand being a representation of who we are and what we stand for. So I'm just looking and looking at some things. It's like, I really need to go back to that, solidify some things in that area to push that forward.
Well, happy to meet with you one-on-one. You want to schedule something, we can do that. And thank you for bringing that up, because really all of this effort to go to all these different channels is really a waste of time if you haven't figured out your brand and your branding story, your logo, your look and feel, if you will. You're going to be exposing your brand to all these new customers. So you want to be sure you've thought through what you've done and what you're trying to say so that they are able to adequately understand what you're proposing and what your value is. So I appreciate Quandell bringing that up. I should have led this off with the reason we did branding before this was because this is a waste of time if you don't do the right job with branding. Not to say that you can't evolve and improve and figure it out as you go. You can, but you got to have a basic starting point that's coherent and then keeping with your philosophy and your beliefs. Because remember what that speaker said, they don't buy what you sell, they buy why you sell it. Simon Sinek. And I really believe that to be true. So branding is really about authentically identifying why you are selling what you're selling.
Indeed.
So, all right. Any other comments or thoughts? Anybody? So the end result of this conversation today is I will not take any excuses why you aren't selling something somewhere. I understand your site might not be what you want or have everything that you need, but there's really no reason why you can't be on one or all of these platforms or many of them selling and learning as you go while you figure out all of the things you want to do. And the purpose of this presentation was really to open your eyes to these platforms and kind of what's out there and what's available. So I'm happy to reach out. Anybody wants to reach out to me individually, you want to schedule time, I'm happy to do that and talk about your particular situation. That's all I have for today. I don't know if anybody else has anything else you want to say. Tomorrow, it's actually going to be somewhat similar. We're going to talk more about omni-channel. I'm just going to bring in more about physical spaces and partnerships and things like that that kind of go along with what we're talking about today. This idea of, you're going to start hearing more and more the word omni-channel, because the truth is, because of the pandemic, there are just so many more channels of commerce than there were before the pandemic. I've said this before, and don't ask me to prove it, but I heard there was 1 out of 1,000 Americans bought food online before the pandemic. It's now 1 out of 3. It's just one example. So we are seeing changes and patterns. And even now, I think we're seeing people start to go back to the stores, start to go back to physical locations. I think that's starting to happen as well. Maybe the digital is leveling off a little bit. I don't know in your all case, in your business case. But that's what we'll be talking about tomorrow. So unless anybody has anything, I'm gonna bid you adieu until tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.